On today's question of faith, what's the difference between a cathedral, a basilica, and a shrine? Everybody, this is Question of Faith. I am Mike Hayes. I'm the Young Adult Ministry Director in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ferentz, Vicar for Evangelization.
And I am Christina Harrison, Administrative Assistant in the Office of Clergy and Religious.
Ooh, Office of Clergy and Religious. Straighten up and fly right. Here we go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Christina, what exactly do you do here? I know a shorter question is probably what don't you do here?
Yeah, so basically I am the administrative assistant for Father Dan Schlegel, who's the Vicar for Clergy and Religious, and soon to be Father Joe Mamich, who will be the Vicar for Clergy.
Less than a month.
And starting in November. I tell both of them my job is to make you look good, more or less. But our office does a lot of stuff. We basically serve those who serve in our diocese. So
nice.
The priests, the deacons, and the religious, and we do a number of things.
I'll tell you how most priests would know her is that if you are going to serve outside the diocese, you need a letter of suitability to do so. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I'll be doing a wedding soon outside the diocese, and I have to request a letter of suitability from the Vicar for Clergy. He writes that to the bishop of the next diocese.
Correct.
Or the other Vicar of Clergy, and
Yes.
then they know I'm coming, then they give you permission, and all that happens. So
Faculty,
that's probably the most common experience that at least the brother priests have of you.
Probably, and deacons.
And deacons. And then if you're away studying, which I was for 3 years in Rome, my contact person with my budget was Christina Harrison. So it was like,
Yes.
ciao, Christina.
Yep.
Buongiorno.
Yep.
And I would email you at 6 in the morning, which was noon when I got done with my writing.
Yep.
So, yeah, I had sending emails at all weird times of the day.
Yeah, we also help with like the diocesan jubilees
Yes,
for the priests
right.
and the deacons, celebrating significant jubilees, the religious jubilee. We help with ordinations and day of sanctification. So, yeah, there's lots of stuff that...
All the fun stuff.
all the fun stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Clergy Personnel Board meets with people all the time,
Yep.
to talk about assignments. So I've got my meeting coming up for my possible ordination coming up in May. So Christina did send me a whole big questionnaire.
Yep.
Is it on a Monday?
It
on
is
Monday.
actually, yeah. What a surprise.
We used to call the personnel board the personality board. Because a lot of what they have to do is figure out priests' personalities
Yeah.
and deacons' personalities and try to find good fits.
Try to find good fits, yeah. That's it. So it's all kinds of questions I had to answer and then send back to her. And I'm going to pat myself on the back just slightly. Christina said she's never gotten one back so fast as the one she got back from me.
I was going to say, I think I sent the email at like 9 in the morning, and you emailed me back at like 11. And I was like, are you serious? Like some other deacon candidates take, 3-4 weeks to get it back to me.
Now, just to be really upfront about this, one, it was a day where I just, I had a free period, basically. I said, oh, this isn't, I could do this right now. But honestly, if I didn't do it right now, then I'd forget to do it.
Well, yeah.
I'll be like, and then you'd be bugging me to do it.
I was going to say, there's, a couple of people I have to nudge, so.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, you wrote in this question today. What's the difference between a cathedral, basilica, and a shrine? And so, what was in your mind when why did this come to your head and say, I think I'll ask these guys about this?
Yeah. So when I was in parish ministry, I was doing RCIA, and this question usually came up around Lent for the rite of election. We would, tell our candidates and catechumens, hey, we're going downtown to the cathedral, and, we're going to do this service called the rite of election, and, catechumens become elect, and da-da-da-da, you get to meet the bishop, it's a big ordeal, and everyone would be like, well, what's a cathedral? And so we had to explain what a cathedral was, and then as we were doing that, someone, would ask, "Oh, what's a basilica?" or "What's a shrine?" And so, even my dad, who, is 67 years old, he really doesn't even he knows that these places are set apart from just your, regular home parish, but there's differences between the three. So I thought, we have a cathedral, and we have a couple of shrines in the diocese. So,
philosophy is sometimes known as the art of making helpful distinctions. So we'll ask Mr. Mike Hayes to make distinctions. So what do you have? You actually wrote on this.
I actually,
before.
believe it or not, I actually Googled this to say, well, let me make sure. I think I know what the answer to this, but let me make sure. So let me do the research. So I Google it, and an article comes up. What's the difference between a cathedral and a basilica? By me.
There you go.
So I wrote from us today. So like a cathedral is a home church for the bishop. You know, essentially that's where the bishop's chair is, the cathedra, and represents the seat of authority in the diocese. That's a cathedral. So wherever the cathedral is, that's where the bishop is, essentially, right?
And only the bishop sits in
Correct.
the cathedra.
Great.
So if I celebrate Mass, which I do regularly in the cathedral, I sit in another chair, not in his chair. It's the bishop's chair.
That's right.
And usually you can call it the cathedra?
Cathedra.
Has his coat of arms.
Correct.
That designates, that's his chair.
That's his chair. Don't sit there.
Yes, exactly.
And then a basilica, on the other hand, is just an important church building that's designated by the Pope because it carries some kind of special historical or architectural or spiritual significance to it. And you usually see like the little umberlino in a basilica. They have the right to, if they're named a basilica, they can have the little umberlino in there.
I am by no means an expert in Greek. I only took 1 year of Greek in college, but I remember Basileus means the king, and so that's the root of the word basilica.
I did not know that. It's wild, weird stuff. And so basically, we have a cathedral and a basilica. So basilica, just an important building. Cathedral's where the bishop is, the seat of the diocese, essentially, right? Now, a shrine, I didn't write about that, by the way. I had to actually look this up. So a shrine is essentially often like a place where it's there for some purpose. It's named a shrine for some purpose because there's usually a relic of a saint in that church, or it has some other kind of special significance, and it's usually dedicated to a saint in particular. So we have a couple of shrines in the diocese, right?
The Lourdes Shrine.
Yeah, Our Lady of Lourdes.
They're almost every Thursday morning for 7 a.m. Mass. Yeah, and they have a bunch of tourists come through for Sunday Mass, especially during the warmer months, because they have a 9:30 Mass.
Yeah, outdoors.
Outside. It's pretty great.
And a shrine also might be associated with like a particular, like an apparition happened here, or something like that, or some other kind of historical event may have happened on this spot.
Now, let's go back to the Basilica, because don't you need like special permission? You ask for this church to be recognized, and then it gets a formal recognition or something like this? Because I'm trying to think, the Basilica in D.C. is one. Isn't the Basilica at Notre Dame?
Yes,
that's a
that is
basilica.
correct.
Yeah, Basilica
I
of
was
the
there
Sacred
most
Heart.
recently.
I mean, it's the highest permanent designation for a church building. And so, once a church is named a basilica, it can't lose its basilica status.
Correct.
I may or may not have heard a story about a particular diocese where the pastor got the parish named a basilica so it couldn't be closed. So that was pretty creative on his part. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and so that once they dedicate it, that's it. Now it's there for all time. So that was crafty on the part of the pastor.
But we don't have a basilica in the Diocese of Cleveland.
No.
Correct. We are the only diocese in
Ohio
that doesn't have a basilica.
Oh.
And you visited them all, right?
Yeah,
So-
I did. So my friend Becca and I, back October of 2020, we decided to take a road trip to visit all of the cathedrals and basilicas in Ohio. And so we started in Toledo, went to Columbus, Cincinnati, Steubenville, and ended up in Youngstown. So there's one basilica that was named in June of 2022 that we did not hit. But we will visit it soon. But we visited, all of the cathedrals and basilicas, all of the Roman Catholic.
Nice. Did you have a favorite?
Oh gosh, knew you were going to ask me that. Probably the cathedral in Toledo. I don't know if you guys have been there.
Been there.
Oh
It's
my gosh,
beautiful.
that place is just enormous. It's 2 football fields long.
Wow.
And in comparison, our cathedral is only 1 football field long. But I loved the grandeur of that cathedral. I also loved the intricate detail that was placed on like the wood carvings and the what do you call it? The confessionals, and I mean stained glass windows. I mean, that place is just, you walk in and you just know that, God is present in this space.
Nice. I'll have to do that. We'll have to get in the car and do all the cathedrals and basilicas one day.
Yeah.
One week.
I was going to say, we did it in 3 days.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, so like I said, we started in Toledo. We went to Rosary Cathedral, as it's called, and then we went down to the Basilica and National Shrine of Our Lady of Consolation, which I know a number of people do pilgrimages there. And that place is awesome. If you go downstairs, there's a huge reliquary of first-class relics. So my friend and I were just like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. And then we went to Columbus, St. Joseph's Cathedral, which is, I mean, it's a nice cathedral. Yeah. It's in downtown Columbus, similar to Cleveland here. And then what sparked the whole road trip was the Cathedral of St. Peter in Chains in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati had just been named a basilica in June of 2020. So we were like, oh, let's go down there. And that cathedral basilica is very different. There's a lot of red and brown, and it doesn't look like your typical cathedral on the inside. On the outside, it does. But yeah, I would say if you want a unique church, go to the Cathedral-Basilica of St. Peter in Chains.
Now, you said Cathedral-Basilica, so church can be a cathedral and a basilica.
Correct, yes.
And actually also a shrine.
And a shrine,
It could be all three of those things.
Or it could be two. So I lived in D.C. for a couple years, and the National Basilica of the Shrine of Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception, I think is the name.
Correct, yes.
So it's a shrine and a basilica, but the cathedral is St. Matthew's.
Right.
And I had to learn that, and I figured it out, but it took a little while to get that going. And then there's a place called, what is it called? It's the Franciscan Zone. It's a monastery, the Franciscan Monastery, but I think that's a shrine as well. So there might be a couple little shrines in D.C., but the big one is the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, which is also a basilica. And I think, is it true that if a pope visits a church, it automatically gets one of those designations?
It wouldn't surprise me.
It
wouldn't surprise me.
It usually does.
Because John Paul, Benedict, and Pope Francis all visited that place. And I was there for 2 of those visits, in fact.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Not John Paul, because I was only 3 in 1979. But when Benedict came when I was a student there in 2008, and then I went for Unipero Serra's canonization mass, maybe 2013, 2014.
Oh, nice.
So.
And I know the one in Baltimore is a cathedral, basilica, and a shrine.
Isn't it the oldest in the
yes,
in the
also
country?
the first Catholic cathedral in the United States. So it's the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Baltimore.
That's a mouthful.
I was just about to say that is really a mouthful.
But it's also the co-cathedral of the Archdiocese of Baltimore.
Very cool.
Very nice. Yeah. Christina, where do you go to church, speaking of churches?
Churches. So my husband and I are members of St. Charles Borromeo in Parma.
It's kind of like a shrine.
I mean, it really is.
Truly.
But we recently moved to Strongsville, and so when we don't go to St. Charles, we just go down the road to St. John Neumann, which is on Pearl Road. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. What do you like about there?
It's a little more. I feel like St. Charles it's huge, it's beautiful, but St. John Neumann, like the pews are a little bit closer together, so it feels a little bit more intimate. They have a really active, Life Teen program and Knights of Columbus. I feel like they just are constantly doing just all sorts of stuff for teens and children. So it's a nice little parish. I really like Father Barry Gehring, who's the pastor there.
Father Barry and I were in seminary together, and he was formerly the pastor of St. Adalbert in Berea, and he's done some renovations of the church recently, and I was there for a talk maybe last month, but it's sharp looking. It's cozy. I would say it's cozy because St. Charles is Romanesque. It's more traditional in its architecture. This is more modern. But again, like we had talked last week, there's a reverence, but it's also a little less formal. So it's got a nice feel, and it is built in the round. Although he did move the music to part of that round, but Yeah, it's a nice parish. And he's got a dog. What's his dog's name is Neumann,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
St. John Neumann.
Yeah.
Big old black lab, right?
Yeah, so when he's not celebrating Mass, he's usually in the nave with Neumann. So you walk in, hey, and he's just the most chill dog.
Do you ever go to the Life Teen Mass there? Is it a 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. Sunday?
I have not, but I've heard that it's
music
it's
is
amazing.
outstanding. Yeah, it's really, and that band is, or what do we call it? We don't want to call them a band. The music ministry group has been together for some time, and they're excellent. Yeah. In fact, in our diocese, Father Dave Woost, Bishop's little brother, when he was newly ordained, was assigned there. And they were the first or second parish in the diocese to bring Life Teen to the diocese. The other one was John Neumann or John Bosco in Parma Heights. I remember that, being in high school and hearing of this strange thing called Life Teen. So, yeah.
Nice.
Have you been there, Mike?
I have not. No, that's one I have not. I've been in Charles Borromeo, but I have not been to John Neumann. So I'll have to take a trip out.
Yeah, there's two parishes in Strongsville, St. Joe's on the northern side and St. John's southern side, and they have a school called St. Joe's and John's.
Oh, right. Yes.
And they're both on the same road. So
Yeah.
if you are on 71 South and you get off at Pearl, you'll drive down, you'll hit St. Joe's on the right, and then it's like 2 miles away, you'll hit St. John's on the left.
And depending on what time of day you drive, you could get there in about 3 minutes or 30.
Yes, exactly.
The traffic in Strongsville can be a nightmare.
That is true.
Also true. And so our readings for the 28th Sunday in Ordinary Time. First readings from Isaiah. This one speaks to me. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will provide for all peoples a feast of rich food and choice wines. Juicy, rich food and pure, choice wines. That's what I'm talking about.
I know.
Anything strike you, Christina, about the readings?
Looking at the second reading, Philippians, I really love Philippians and what Paul writes, and I feel like, I could have a bumper sticker that says, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. Like, that's just a great motto to live by. But, just the whole reading, at the end it says, my God will fully supply whatever you need in accord with his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. Just a reminder to trust in God and in his timing, too.
And I'll take the gospel then, which builds off the first reading, especially where God provides on this holy mountain. So there's this wedding feast. People don't want to come, but then he sends his servants out into the streets, gather all those who he finds, bad, good alike, and the hall is filled with guests. But then there's an issue, like everybody's having a good time except somebody's not in a wedding garment. So what is this wedding garment, and why do we have to have one? I think it's an important question.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Dun-dun-dun.
Leave you hanging. Exactly. Leave you hanging there. So hopefully wherever you go, you'll get to know what the wedding garment is in your parish.
And put one on.
And put one on. Absolutely. And so we'll have this and a whole lot more. Christina, thanks for joining us, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
Before
I
sign
appreciate
off.
it.
Yeah, it was always great. We'll have you back.
Sounds good.
And so we'll have this and a whole lot more next time on Question of Faith.